This is Penn Woods interviewing for the Oklahoma Living Legends. The date is April the 24th, 1971, which is the day of the 11th Annual Western Heritage Awards of the National Cowboy Hall of Fame and Western Heritage Center. I'm in the Lincoln Plaza interviewing two guests who are receiving special awards for the Marlboro Man. These men are both with the Leo Burnett Agency and were creators of the Marlboro Man. These two men are Mr. Norman Muse and Mr. John Benson. And I think to begin, let's see, Norman, excuse me. I don't know where we should start, which one we should.
John is the accountant.
Good. All right. Well, we will start with Norman because this has certainly been a very successful promotion, and I'll start with Norman to ask, how did the idea of the Marlboro Man come about?
Well, the Marlboro Man started a long time ago, back in 1958, or 57 or 58. Mr. Burnett and his people got together and created a masculine image. And the cowboy was not really a dominant part of the campaign at that time. It was, the cowboy was in there, but was not a dominant part until later. And then several years later, the cowboy was introduced and used in a number of different ways. And I think it became more successful when I guess 6 years ago, John, or something like that, we started depicting him as he really exists by going to ranches, going to the 4.6s, the Pitchforks, Swenson, the YO, and top ranches all over the country, and depicting real cowboys in their real environment. And I think this is when it really started to become more meaningful.
All of your recent ones then have been real cowboys and not just actors. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. We've used Wayne Dunafin, who is a runner-up, I believe, all-around cowboy back in around 55 or 56, and other real cowboys from ranches all over. But we do use one cowboy type who is was one of the top stuntmen in westerns, but other than that, they're all cowboys.
What do you feel is the unusual twist to this that has made this such a long-time promotion? Very few last this long. Why do you think this has lived so long?
Well, I think we've been very single-minded in our approach. We've stayed with a single, very simple image, which has broad appeal. It surprisingly has a lot of appeal in more urban areas, and it's somewhat escapist advertising. People in urban areas who are tired of pollution and traffic and all the urbanization and computerization that they're confronted with. The wide open scenery and the realism of the last American folk hero, who the cowboy represents, really appeals to them, and I think that's probably the reason for its success.
I'd like to visit a little with Mr. Benson. Mr. Benson, you were the account executive, is this correct?
Yes.
Were you the account executive when when it was first proposed?
I started on Marlboro in 1954.
Let me hand this to you and talk about the presentation of this and the acceptance by the client.
Well, I started on Marlboro at the very beginning. It was in 1954, and at that time, Marlboro was a very upscale cigarette, which was sold primarily in country clubs, fashionable hotel lobbies, and places like that. It had a very female, sissified type of image. And of course, our job was to make a mass brand out of this product, and as Norman stated earlier, this was done through the use of the cowboy. It was readily recognized on the part of the client that this was the way to go. The one thing we must give him credit for was the fact that after we did start our cowboy approach, it took possibly a year before there was any effect in the sales picture, but they had the same confidence in the approach that we did and stayed with it. And of course, over the years, it's been refined and certainly enhanced, we feel, and this has been reflected in our sales. The thing that's been most amazing to me is the fact that many young people can relate to our cowboy, which to me is sort of a dichotomy in today's living, with the young people seeming to be a little bit different than our cowboy, but apparently they are able to relate to him, and this we found very interesting.
Have either of you been to the Cowboy Hall of Fame before? Have you been out there since you got here? Well, you'll have a real experience to look forward to. Do you feel that that within this Marlboro Man that there has been, I know that we feel that there has been some contribution to Western heritage and to the image of the cowboy. I wonder how you feel, or how in relating this to the image of the Western heritage.
Well, I think the Western heritage and the cowboy kind of represents, I think it represents grassroots America. It represents a heritage that in today's world we tend to lose sight of, because communication and events happen so quickly through television. They become, communication is instant, and we're confronted with so many different pieces of news that it becomes very difficult for us to remember our heritage, to remember the past. And I think the cowboy is a symbol of that past, and he's a very dramatic hero type. He's a self-confident man who has developed pride through some honest hard work that he is involved in on ranches. And it's this heritage that I think a lot of Americans seek today, and we can see this in the popularity of nostalgia in advertising, nostalgia in television programs, and I think this is due to that loss of heritage that we're experiencing. And I think the interesting thing to me is that the cowboy really hasn't changed that much. They use helicopters sometimes, and they use vehicles, but still he's pretty much the same as he was at the turn of the century, I think.
Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure to visit with our two Marlboro men, Norman Muse and John Benson. Thank you a lot.